There's a lot of controversy regarding a new ad that Gillette put out. Gillette is the Procter & Gamble company that sells things like men's razors. And they wanted to focus on the issue of toxic masculinity. Without saying too much, let's look at the ad.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it?
It's likely happening here in bullying as well. A problem.
We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says it's
They included a TYT clip in there.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. Okay, so I did not audition for this commercial. They literally used a clip from a story that we were doing on Harvey Weinstein, who's a sexual predator. Now that's an important thing to keep in mind because a conservative is about to criticize my involvement in this ad, but they reached out to us for licensing purposes, asked if they could use the clip. I didn't think much about it, I just signed off and forgot about it, and then a month later I'm in the ad. But again, it's from an actual story that we did here at TYT.
Yeah. So obviously conservatives are gonna be upset. This is a controversy.
Yeah.
Because should men be good guys or should they be monsters? Let's debate.
Well, okay, so before we debate though, I want you to watch the rest of the ad because it starts off by pointing out what toxic masculinity is, giving a few examples of it. And then, for everyone who thinks that this was nothing more than an ad that was hypercritical of men, just pay attention to the wording in the second half of it.
We believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie.
Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men, for everyone.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
I'm so offended right now.
I mean, what kind of a world do we live in? Where, and mind you, the crying conservatives are a tiny, tiny minority. That's why Gillette made the decision to do an ad filled with decency, because the overwhelming majority of their customers and the American population are decent people. But now these loud, crying minority of conservatives, here they go again. Now they want the men to be the best they can be. Outrageous! We like being the worst that we could be.
Well, it's also funny because like, oh, why do we need an ad like this? How dare they? Like they're proving the point in the ad.
Yeah, because there's a range of critique here, and ranging from, of course, the horrible to the hilarious. So one conservative critique was, oh yeah, I can see where Gillette's agenda is. All the bad guys have beards, but all the good guys are cleanly shaven. So I rewatched it and I was like, oh my God, that's not remotely true.
Yeah.
A lot of the good guys that go, hey, that's not cool, have beards. Watch the ad. They just don't care about facts at all. They're amazing. And so what the ad is asking you to do is to be a good guy. It's not saying all guys are bad guys. Where did you see that in the ad? It is your assumption because of what you believe, right? And so then you project it onto the ad. That's all that's asking you to do is to be strong and smart and decent. So I can't believe they made that debatable. Why? Because they're special little snowflakes.
Okay.
They got triggered by somebody asking you to be decent.
It's amazing. Okay, so amazing. Ben Shapiro got triggered, and he went on a very fast-talking rant about this.
Oh, then it must be smart.
We're gonna share it with you. Let's take a look at the first video.
And then you've got a bunch of men standing by the barbecues saying boys will be boys, because that's what men have been doing for generations, is just
pretending that toxic masculinity and toxicity is no problem. It's been too much male presence that has destroyed America. That's really the message of this Gillette commercial, and it continues along these lines. And then we get clips of Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Come on.
Anna Kasparian, how dare she?
How dare she? Come on. Well, that proves the case, isn't it?
So what I want to ask Ben Shapiro, and I'm curious. So they used a clip of me reporting on Harvey Weinstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you offended by that? Are you offended that I was doing my job by reporting on Harvey Weinstein? Is that virtue signaling, Ben Shapiro? I just want to know. Can you guys please ask him for me?
Should we not have reported on that? If we hadn't, Young Turks covering up things. Okay, anyway. So his contention there is that that this was never an issue. That boys will be boys apparently was a thing that was never said. What do you mean? But it was said. That's why it's a saying. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what they keep like implying is that all men were bad, or that progressives or Gillette thinks that all men were bad, but nobody ever said that. Not all men are bad. Not everything that even a bad guy does is bad. Like Dick Cheney loves his kids. He's a terrible guy. Is in favor of torture and unnecessary wars, but he loves his kids, right? So you could do nuance, or you could do, nobody ever said boys will be boys. You know, they're pretending that there was this toxic culture, and there was no toxic culture at all. Men were just our angels brought down on earth.
All of them,
and forever. Like they never beat. We didn't used to beat our kids. We never sexually harassed anybody at work. Look, guys, did some guys do that in the past? Do some guys still do that today? The answer is obvious. Of course. So we're asking to fix the culture so that the minority of guys who do that don't do it anymore.
So
how could that be offensive?
There's something called the Violence Against Women Act, which Congress has to vote on to reapprove as it expires. Why do you think that act exists? The whole purpose of that was to provide resources to victims of domestic abuse. Now, the majority of those victims happen to be women, but the act also provides those resources for men who have been victims of domestic abuse. But the reason why it's called Violence Against Women Act is because historically, women have been, not all women and not all men have done this, but when domestic violence comes up, a lot of the perpetrators end up being men. And so Congress had to do something about it. Anyway, whatever, we're trying to have a conversation with people who have no interest in nuance whatsoever. Everything's black and white. Either men are good or men are bad. Like there's no middle ground, which is insane. And the same, by the way, the same applies to women. The same applies to humans in general. Some are good, some are bad. Most humans are mixed bag, right? As you mentioned, Dick Cheney. Although I would argue, even though he loves his kids, he's
it's maybe not a great example of a mixed bag. But so, by the way, the one person who is a survivor of sexual violence in that ad is a male. Mm-hmm. So they're like, against men. No, he's a guy. Look, the website that Gillette set up is thebestmencanbe.org. I guess the counter argument is no. We want the worst that men can be.org. Okay.
So we got to go to the last clip. Again, this is Ben Shapiro. He continues on with his argument, and I have to debunk it. Take a look.
Do you want to know what has created serious problems in American society? It's a lack of men, not over presence of men. It's been dearth of men that has created massive problems in American society. Today, according to the US Census Bureau, some 23% of American children live with a single mother. That percentage has tripled since 1960. As of 2012, 55% of black kids and 31% of Hispanic kids live with one parent, predominantly the mother. And are they getting a male presence at school? No, it turns out 76% of teachers are female. 80% of social workers are female. At the same time, toxic masculinity has risen. So maybe it's that in the absence of a strong male presence, providing guidance to young men, what you end up with is toxic masculinity. Because it turns out that if you're getting your male influence from other teenagers, teenagers are stupid and more aggressive and they make worse decisions. So it's not that there have been too many fathers inculcating bad ideas in their kids. It's that there have been too few fathers around to teach their sons responsibility and decency. That's the major problem in American society, not too much masculinity.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just concede to Ben Shapiro's point that it's problematic when kids aren't raised with a father in the household. But whose fault is it that there isn't a father in the household? if the father decides he wants to be a deadbeat and not a father, isn't that toxic masculinity? And his argument is, we need a father in the household to help raise the kid or kids and make sure that it doesn't perpetuate toxic masculinity. Yeah. Isn't that what the Gillette commercial is all about? Having older generations of men set a good example for younger generations so boys will grow up to be better? I mean.
So Ben spits out stats in a way that is appealing to the unsophisticated. So because it doesn't have context and it doesn't make any sense. So he says, 76% of teachers are women. Okay, but think about that stat. So who's stopping the men from becoming teachers?
No, Cenk, there is an orchestrated effort to prevent men from becoming teachers.
Okay, and so what do you want to do? 80% of social workers are women. Do you want to fire them? And do you want to do a quota for men to become social workers? I thought you were against quotas. And then he said some straw men, like he says, the problem isn't that there are too many fathers, that it's too little fathers. Well, who said the problem was too many fathers? Did Gillette say, no, guys, we've got too many fathers here. Let's bring it down.
But it goes further than that. The fathers are the ones who have made the decision to not be fathers. The fathers are the ones who decided to abandon their kids and go off and do whatever else they want to do. So like, whose fault is that? Are you blaming the women in this situation?
And that is what is implicit, right? So, and of course it's not all fathers because we do nuance. We don't live in a black and white world. Well, who's guilty? Is it the men or the women? Or maybe it doesn't break down like that.
Right.
All right, great ad by Gillette, and the conservatives can't stand that they're losing the country. The country believes that the men should be good people and should try to be good people. And it doesn't mean that they're all guilty. It just means, yes, like anyone else, of course, people can improve, and Gillette's asking them to improve. It should be relatively straightforward, but apparently conservatives need a safe space from good men. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.